That was so great. This morning, more than most mornings, I was looking out at you, and your faces smiling up at Posey were just the sweetest things, the sweetest, sweetest. So thank you very much for establishing this energy in this space. So welcome, everybody. I can see that people are coming back after holidays in the summer, and very, very great to see you. We have a gift for you if you are here for the very first time. These are our newcomer goddesses that have a gift for you. If you are here for the first time, would you just raise your hand so they can put something in it? Anybody here for the first time? That's all we'd ask you to do. It's all family today? All family today. All right. Well, welcome. So you know already that our vision is awakening personal transformation because you're in the middle of it. And that our mission is teaching tools for positive change because you use them, right? Yes, very good, very good, yes. So the global vision that we have for this year, as you know, is a world that works for everyone. So I'd really like to say that there is enough good of every kind for everyone. That's what that means. That if we have a world that works for everyone, we have everything that we need. And I came across a wonderful quote from, I was standing in the kitchen, kind of checking in on Facebook, inviting you all here. And something from Helen Keller came to me, on Facebook, which she said, although the world is full of suffering, it is also full of the overcoming of it. Isn't that wonderful to know? That is what we focus on. For a world that works for everyone, we focus on what works. And so our October theme is this: global transformation through personal transformation. So all these little dancer people are transforming just like you are. And what this says is that as more and more of us heal, then it's easier and easier for the rest of us to heal. So we are, however you look at it, we're the forefront, we're in the middle, we are adding to that energy of healing and letting go of disempowering beliefs and letting go of separation and those kinds of spiritual principles, living the spiritual principles that we know work and letting go of the opposite. That's what we do. So the title today is encouragement through example. I'm going to describe this because it's adorable. It's adorable. It is a mom doing a down dog yoga and her baby starting a somersault. So they're both kind of in the same pose. And I want to say that it's not because we are inept with this PowerPoint. It's that sometimes the juice or whatever it is, the enough bandwidth to deliver it, because I go over it at home. Cece got it in the week. We looked at it over and over and over again. So it's not that we just throw this thing up there. So imagine, if you would, these two lovely, lovely beings. The mom doing the down dog and the baby pretending to do the down dog, but actually getting ready to do a somersault. So when we are examples for others of how life works, and by that I mean when we are humble and amazed and grateful about how well our life works, we are automatically examples for others. This is the quote from, see, now this one works, that was given to us from Home Office, and it is, we strive to assist individuals in their own evolutionary awakening process. So I want to do a disclaimer right now, because when we can get thrown off by this, I am an example of a life that works. Because if we try to give somebody a lesson that we think they need, adult to adult. Usually that, especially if they don't seek it, if we say, I know what you need and this is it, then a lot of times we actually tell more about ourselves than that other person. And actually sometimes up here I see things like where somebody is like poking their neighbor in the ribs or giving them the hairy eyeball, saying, this, listen to this. So that really doesn't work, right? Rather, it's this. When you live your own life well, asking to be well used, you are automatically an example because of God's economy. Now, I actually coined that phrase, God's economy. I think I did. I've been using it for so many years, I'm claiming it. And what that means to me is that in one situation, God can create so many different lessons for everybody involved. There's one scenario. Let's take the election. There's one. Jay says, you take it. Okay, let's, in the scenario of the election, we have lessons of courage, lessons of forgiveness, lessons of equanimity. I'm talking me. Maybe you. Lessons of clarity, lessons of oneness instead of separation, and lessons of dedication. And all of these lessons are in this same circumstance that looks kind of common from the outside, but every single person that is in it is available for a different lesson. That is God's economy. So today, we're going to use the example of two wonderful beings that we share this planet with, and remind us that a world that works for everyone has examples all around us. And the examples that I'm going to use for us that we can copy are the penguins and the butterflies. So I want to draw your attention to a Mary Lee Bickford altar here. I just said those two words, and this is what we get today. We get a beautiful altar of penguins and butterflies, because these two beings represent two different ways of going through life. And we may like one more than the other, or we may use one and then the other from time to time. So let's look at our little friends, the penguins. So this is the lesson of being a good example of choice. So here is the story of the penguins. This side of the room loves the penguin story. Janet even wrote to me on Facebook, I know what's coming. So the story of the penguins is that they're very good swimmers, but they're hatched on land. And so the baby penguins don't know how to swim when they start toddling around. But they got to learn. They got to learn how to swim, because that's where dinner is in the ocean. And so when it's time for the babies to start swimming, the parents take all of the babies to the cliff edge, and the parents plop in the water and call to the babies, come on, come on. Now some babies choose to fly through the air and plop in the water and go swimming, because that's the natural thing that penguins do. Those are the choosers that are leaders. They're out front. They're, fearless, and I'm ready for this. Then there are lots of us that walk back and forth along the edge of the cliff, saying, no, don't make me do it, don't make me do it. And back and forth, worrying. And the parents are saying, come on, come on. And finally, they plop in the water. Those are the choosers that are thoughtful and measured, and, they kind of weigh things. Then there are the babies that just really can't jump in, and we'll talk about them later, but that also represents a choice. A decision not to choose is a choice, when you say, that's a choice. So there are some things to think about when you are living your life from choice. And the example I don't think that penguins actually do this, but when I thought of what happens when I live a life of choice, here are the things that I think work for me. First, it is think deeply. So the hallmark, I believe, of a good choice is one that is made from deep thought rather than from impulse, where you don't make the choice right away, but you think about it. And your thinking is based on spiritual principle. It's not based on what your parents told you. It's not based on what your friends tell you. It is based on spiritual principle, like we speak all the time. And like we have up on the screen at the end of the talk, we have the spiritual principles that we're operating in the talk. Spiritual principles are in every single class that we teach. And if you get a prayer from a practitioner after a service, they are going to tell you the spiritual principle on which they pray. Because that's when something works, is when the spiritual principle that operates around us in the universe is accommodated, is agreed with. It's very easy to think, the law of gravity, when you work with it, when you're a downhill skier, it works much better than if you fight it. Same way with spiritual principle. If you understand spiritual principle and make choices based on spiritual principle, like we are all one, there is no separation, life is essentially good, your thought is creative, those kinds of things, it usually works out better. Yes? Yes. All right. Next about choice is to share your wisdom. And this is where you have to be careful because of what I already said. You can't poke somebody in the ribs and say, this is for you. But we all see people that we deeply wish they knew what we knew because they're in pain. And we have been in that pain, and we know a better way. So how do we nudge them over to the path that we know is less pain and more grace? It's tricky because if you give them the bigger step than they can take, they will shut you off. So one of the things that I've learned when I see somebody and I want to offer them another way of looking at it is I'll say that. Would you be interested in seeing this in a different way? What if you looked for this instead of this? A kind of an open-ended question where they can be curious and say, tell me more, rather than you pontificating and saying this is the way it is. But if you can say, maybe there's another way of interpreting this. I know, I felt that way, then I tried it this way, now this works for me, maybe it would work for you. That kind of thing, gently. And then what also works for me is praying that the words that come out of my mouth are useful. Lastly, on this example of the penguins, is to take fearless action based on spiritual principle and the deepest wisdom that you can access. That inspired action inspires everybody. So when I think back in my own life of tough choices, 2 divorces, changing jobs, buying a house, selling a house, submitting to chemotherapy, leaving my 21-year-old daughter on Santorini and coming home without her because she wanted to take scuba diving lessons in Santorini. When I made those choices, it was based on other people helping me think as deeply as I possibly could and make choices based on spiritual wisdom and then sticking to it. That seems to be what works for me. So in this particular time in October, I'm now going to make a sharp turn here, but still keep on to the topic. This is our pledge time, when we ask you, how much money do you think you are going to share with our community in 2017? We need this so that we can plan. So right now, this is where we are. We want at least 350 and 400,000 could really help us do the programs that we want. With one Sunday in, we are at $152,000 pledged for next year. So that is wonderful. That, I don't have the actual other statistics with me about how many people that represents, but it means that a number of people are committing thousands of dollars to us in the coming year. And for you to know that that is not only possible, but it's possible for you. That's an example that you can take into your choice making and say, thinking deeply, is this center worth as much as a latte a day? Is this center worth as much as a date night once a week? Maybe some of those things can help you with your thinking process. Back on track here. And with the other, I mean, that was on track, but this track with the butterflies. So this is an example of faith in action when you have no means of making a choice. So let me tell you what happens in the butterfly's life. The butterfly is going along as a caterpillar, and it is nearing its transformation time, which it knows nothing about. It is a caterpillar. And so the caterpillar gets hungrier than usual. And I mean, my babies were raised in that book with the very hungry caterpillar. They are very hungry. And so they eat ravenously, consuming everything in sight. And the caterpillar body becomes so heavy it can't move. And it outgrows its own skin many times until it's too bloated to do anything except kind of hang onto a branch, and that last shedding of the skin becomes the chrysalis in which it's going to live for a while. All the time, not knowing what it's doing, but just doing what comes naturally, it doesn't have a choice in this. So then this is what is so cool about the chrysalis. Within the chrysalis, a miracle occurs. Tiny cells that biologists actually call imaginal cells begin to appear. These cells are very different than the caterpillar cells, carrying different information, vibrating to a different frequency, the frequency of the emerging butterfly. But what happens first is that the caterpillar cells see these as invaders. And so the caterpillar cells the immune system of the caterpillar starts eating the imaginal cells, thinking that they're enemies. But transformation is so powerful that it happens that more imaginal cells emerge than the caterpillar can kill. And so the imaginal cells start recognizing each other and glomming together and making a pattern that literally dissolves the caterpillar, and then inside the chrysalis is butterfly soup. And the butterfly soup is organized by these imaginal cells so that the butterfly emerges. So, I love this. When the butterfly is ready to hatch, the chrysalis becomes transparent. The need for restriction has been outgrown, yet the struggle toward freedom has an organic timing, and it is connected to the breath. The butterfly pops its chrysalis by taking a deep, full breath. Is that the best? That is the best. So, all the time, the caterpillar is clueless. No choice here. And then something brand new emerges. So, in 1991, I was a new bride. I mean, I was a bride long enough to have gotten pregnant. And my husband was out of the country. And it was the weekend that I was candidating at the church in Santa Rosa, which means that I had interviews with many different groups in the church. I was supposed to do a workshop and a talk on Sunday. And on Friday, I had a miscarriage. And my husband wasn't there with me. And I was expected in Santa Rosa. Well, it felt to me like I did not have a choice. I was sort of on automatic up the highway. And very little was clear to me. The talk that I had planned became an entirely different talk, which included the information about having the miscarriage. And I was initiated into a new era of my life, which included being hired by Santa Rosa, moving to Santa Rosa, getting pregnant, a year later, and having a baby, and that was Melanie. The sweetest thing that anybody said to me about that miscarriage just popped out of this woman's mouth. She said, "Oh, she forgot to pack something." I believe that. I like a quality. Oh, wait, Mom. So I know, is that the sweetest thing? So what I want to tell you is there are all times in our life when we're going along with choice and all of a sudden something happens and we are like, what the, what? I have no power of choice in this. So just like the caterpillar moving into the butterfly, here are the things that worked for me. And I think have worked for other people that I've helped. First of all, you maintain spiritual practice. That close connection to spirit is absolutely essential because, one of my teachers said, when you take away the fear, all you have is stuff happening. And so when that happens, you realize, oh, this is happening and I am still in God. Okay, all right, we go with this. Then the next thing is you speak and demonstrate deep faith. Now remember in the Bible, faith is defined as the evidence of things unseen. You can't see it, you've affirmed it, and because you've affirmed it and have faith in it, it's going to come, but you can't see it yet. So that's the faith. You can't see it, and it's coming. But in this case, it is the faith that you can't see, you can't feel it, you can't think of it, it is unrecognizable, you can't touch it, you have no idea what's coming, and you still have faith because of all of the spiritual practice that you've done, knowing that you are one with God and God is good and life is good and your life is unfolding in a way that you had never anticipated, and it must be good because God is good. And then finally, you keep surrendering to what is. You keep demonstrating this skill over and over again, and you become a powerful example on the road to transformation. This is not the time for resistance. This is the time for full embracing of what is. So, I want to just mention the pledge with this way of looking at life too. Sometimes you think that you want to make a choice, but there is something within you that says, no, this is how much you want to give. This is how much you want to prove the principle of prosperity. Try this number until you can't deny it, and you just go with that. And maybe that's happening for some of you as you think about how much you want to give to the community next year. But in conclusion, I want to go back to the penguins because there's something that is common about both these examples, whether you are in choice or whether you are in full-blown surrender. and that is that you remain in the flow of God. Because what happens with those little baby penguins that refuse to jump off the cliff, the tide comes in and sweeps them into the ocean. And so we've got another species here, but it's so cool. This is what we all are in. We are in a sea of God, flowing. And we can make choices, and then when we're in a situation where there's no choice, we surrender, and we keep flowing in that energy that is divine, more and more and more and more. So that's the example of these, well, three species, the penguins, the butterfly, and the dolphins, that show us what life is about. Thank you. So our spiritual principles are, first of all, we are always in the flow of God. And second, we are all connected and thus influence each other. Those are the principles. Those are the principles that we live by. And this is the practice that we take it into the world. And that is, live life well for yourself and all others, because we influence each other. So with that, let us take this into the inner realm. And if you would just join me on that plane of the infinite. And maybe look back over your life at the choices that you've made, the choices that are perhaps in your life right now. And then look back over your life at those times when really you were in that wave, the surf of God, because there was no way that you knew what choice to make. And see how it is all worked out. So maybe right now you are in a place of choice or in a place of surrender. And simply knowing at the deepest place within you, that God, the good, has the entire pattern and you are safe. The entire pattern of transformation. And because of some imaginal cell within your soul, you are being taken to that next expression of the divine. And so for all of this, I give my thanks. And I know it to be true. And so it is. Amen. As Bodhi's coming up to the piano, I'd just like to say I forgot to tell you that the art around here is an art show that is starting at 1 o'clock this afternoon. So if you stick around, you'll be in the midst of an art show. And people were wondering if it's us. Well, it's us right now, but it'll be somebody else at 1 o'clock. So here's Posey and Bodhi and Amanda again.